We use it every day. And this would be the shortest version of it. I simply call it warm-up A. There's a longer version that's essentially the same exercises plus a few more that we tack on at the end, and we do it for a longer duration. So normally we do this every day for 20 meters, and then the ground-based or stationary exercises we do for 8 reps. So first exercise is low skips with arms swinging forward. And we have low skips with arms swinging backwards. And by a low skip, that's just your run-of-the-mill little kid out doing a skip because they know how to. Low skips with arms crossing. And then a skip with a twist. And then the twist is a full 360 alternating directions, clockwise, and then a couple forward skips, and then counterclockwise. And at this point, then we move into a backwards walk with a reach. And one thing we're watching for is the reach isn't all out, like as far as you can, nor is it a small step. And this gives us an opportunity to screen the anterior, the front side of the body. Is there something limiting one leg versus the other with the reach? Right on the cone, nice. Then we move into a backward skip. And then butt kicks. Then we move into some side shuffling. All these exercises can be, a way to say it would be expanded or contracted. So if an athlete has pain or discomfort moving side to side, these activities could easily be walked. And so you can still get the movement just without the speed, with an athlete walking, leading with the left or the right leg. So then that was side shuffle with a jumping jack. And then we move into Carioca. And both Christine and Maddie do a nice job here with hip rotation. Oftentimes you'll see an athlete not rotate the hips left to right, and they'll pull a leg forward, and then they don't do a good job of actually rotating the hips back from where they came from. And so in that one, both Christine and Maddie had good hip rotation left to right. So after that, we move into a quick skip. And this one can be a single leg quick skip. And Maddie's going with her left leg, Christine is going with her right leg. On this one, basically one leg has a greater path of travel, and the other leg is a little bit more like a pogo stick. And we want to see good dorsiflexion. And that would be true on all of these exercises. We want to see, and dorsiflexion is toe pointed towards knee. Plantar flexion would be toe pointed away. And so we had a single leg left, single leg right, and now we have an alternating quick skip. With both of these, I'd say both athletes could have a little bit more roll with a heel to toe, but that's not too bad. That could be an indicator of some kind of calf or hamstring tightness, which could be residual from the workout we did yesterday. So that's the first segment of the warm-up, which is lower range of motion, lower speed activities, kind of the low skips, to where at the end it's the single leg skip, so a little bit more range of motion, a little bit quicker on that. From here, we'll move into stationary or ground and some ground-based dynamic flexibility exercises. Okay. After we've done the first part of the warm-up, which is the mobility exercises with the variety of skipping and the lateral shuffling, then we move to stationary and ground-based dynamic flexibility. And the first thing we'll do is leg swings. So athletes will do 8 each leg facing the fence, or in this case the goalpost, and then they would do 8 each leg with the facing the sides. So Maddie's turning there, Chris turning. And it's important that oftentimes on the back, so when the foot comes behind the body or across the body, the athlete will slow down and not go through the full range of motion. And so both Christine and Maddie are doing a nice job with the leg behind the body, which is then a quad hip flexor stretch. And then we'll move into a hurdle trail leg, and there's going to be forward and backward here on both legs. And one thing we're watching for is we want to see the knee stay above the foot with the forward and back. How's right side feeling today, Maddie?
Not too bad.
Pretty good? Okay. Some folks will when they do this drill, they'll emphasize kind of a fast leg into the ground. We're not doing any of that here. The whole point of the hurdle trail leg is a forward and backward hip mobility. So we're not trying to work on any kind of specific hurdle technique with that. Okay. Next we'll move into eagles, which is essentially standing tall with arms out to the side. And then athletes are going to bring the opposite foot up to the opposite hand. So there's a bit of a coordinative piece here, but also hamstring, glute, and a rotational component. After that, we'll move into side bends. And on this one, the athlete's imagining a line extending through their spine above their head and down through their legs. And they're reaching towards that line, towards center, with both up and a down. And then there's also a little tip to the side here, and that's where the side bend is. And so there's going to be a stretching and engagement through tricep, through serratus muscles, through the side of the body. Okay. Next, we'll move into table position exercises. And so this one, I think people have different names. We just call it camel and old horse. So it's a arching of the back and then a extension and flexion of the spine, basically. And then we'll move into a cat-cobra. So stretching back, and then the athlete is going to come forward with hips on the ground, and then there's going to be a good anterior stretch with the cat-cobra. And then we're going to go reach through and reach up. So now we have a rotational component. And one thing we want to see is the hand that's reaching up, the athlete looking towards that hand. So we have cervical spine and thoracic spine engagement and rotation there. And then the reach through, it's not imperative to reach as far as you can, but you do want a good reach both through and up. And this is where you could see differences one side to the next, and that could be an indicator of some kind of tightness through the back, through a hip, that could be addressed with therapy or self-therapy. Next, we have fire hydrants, and athletes trying to keep hips fairly square and then lift leg to where it's going to remain essentially parallel with the ground as it comes up. And then we'll move into donkey kicks. And you can see a difference. Christine has a little bit more movement through her back. Maddie's a little bit more stationary in that. I wouldn't necessarily say one is correct and one isn't. It's just going to be individual differences with the athlete, potentially where an athlete has restrictions, potentially what an athlete's comfortable doing. And then last, we'll have low whips. And with the low whips, the athlete's going to move outside their body and then across their body and touching the toe on either side. So all those, we would call those a table position, meaning on all fours. And so that's where all the ground-based stuff initiates, from that position on all fours. And then that's the dynamic flexibility portion of the warm-up.
Jeff, if you're at a parking lot or a trailhead that's got gravel or got concrete, how does this work then?
So one option that most athletes have is they have an old yoga mat or a towel with them, and so you can put that out. Or like here at the track, we don't have those mats, so we've got some grass, and I guess in a pinch you just tough it out and kneel on some rocks. But typically a small towel or a yoga mat gets the job done.
Jeff, how long does it take athletes to memorize everything we've seen up to this point?
I can't memorize anything.
A week of doing it every day?
Yeah, about a week of doing it every day. I can't memorize anything, so I write it down. But the athlete's doing it every day, yeah, roughly a week. Yeah.
And then, and just to be clear, you do this before every workout, whether it's a threshold run or a long run or an easy day?
Correct. Yep, it's our standard starting. We don't do any running before it. We do this to start, and then we would go do our easy running before doing a workout, or we do this before going out and doing our easy run, or this before going out and doing our long run. This is the starting point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Last portion of the warm-up is sprint mechanics, and this is the shortest portion of the warm-up. So we're going to go through first starting with an A march, and A skips, B skips, C skips. Most athletes have heard of those, initiated by Gerard Mock, Canadian sprint coach. So for us, we're going through a slow with the A march, and then we're coming back with the A skip. And the A position is essentially the lower leg staying engaged, and we want to see good shin angles, meaning the shin or the shank perpendicular to the ground. And this is really where we want to see dorsiflexion, so a rolling contact, heel to toe. After the A skip, A march and A skip, we're going to move into a B march and B skip. And the B, the lower leg is going to be opened up, and so the swing phase of a run is going to be initiated, but we still want the dorsiflexion, and we still want the contact happening under the body. So both these athletes do this really well. That swing portion doesn't initiate until the thigh starts pushing down. 1 second, I want to try to demonstrate a very common error, and that's as the leg is coming up, So what we want to see is we want to see the thigh come up, block, and then as the thigh starts coming back down, the lower leg is going to swing, and then contact happening really close under the center of mass. A very common error is for the athlete to come up and then kick and then come back down. And we're not the Rockettes, we're not on Broadway, and so we want the thigh to come up and then a forceful initiation down, causing a pendulum effect, and then the foot to come back under the center of mass, or very close to it. If we landed right under, we'd fall on our face. So that's the sprint mechanics. The last thing we'll end with are 2 ankle dribbles, and we can go. So dribbles are a truncated running movement, and basically a couple different ways to explain these, and we'll do a walk back recovery. And by ankle, what we mean by ankle dribbles is the athletes are stepping over their ankles. So one thing to imagine would be that you have a stick that runs through your malleoli, and you have to step over that with very small steps. Another thing to think about would be going up 6-inch stairs. And if you take too big of a step in front of you, you would bash your toes into a stair. So we're looking for small eccentric circles as we go through. And these could very easily be walked. Would you two mind do a walking dribble back? And that's a really good place to start teaching, because it's really good. You can see the really good heel to toe rolling that Chris has as an athlete just steps over. And shin angles are good and perpendicular with the ground. So that's a really good starting point. Again, kind of going back to a point from earlier, all of these exercises you can expand and contract. Maybe an athlete can't move to an A skip or an A run, which we're not doing in this warm-up, but they can do the A march. And so you can start there. So same with dribbles. It may be more effective to have an athlete learn foot contacts and shin angles and kind of these small concentric circles by doing walking dribbles over the ankle or over the calf before they actually start adding speed to that. And that's the third and final section of the warm-up, our sprint mechanics. And at this point, we'd be checking in, and at this point is where we would do any self-therapy or therapy with the therapist that's there at practice before heading out for the run assignment of the day, be it a long run, easy run, or a running warm-up before a harder workout.
Jeff, how long would it take to, going back to our 2 high school athletes, our new athlete who's a freshman, our older athlete who's been in the program a couple years, how long would it take them to execute with, let's say, a grade of a B or a B plus, everything we just saw in terms of these sprint drills?
That's a big spectrum. And to be perfectly frank, I think athletes that maybe have more of an athletic background, so maybe more kinesthetic awareness, are going to pick up on some of these movements. And then maybe you have kind of those beginner athletes in the program, and so maybe they're going through a growth spurt, coordinative abilities are a little bit lower, and it's feasible that it might take that athlete the entire season to really dial in all these activities. If I were picking teaching points, I would say the most important thing that you could ask an athlete to do in every exercise is the dorsiflexion, so toe pointed towards knee and not pointed down. So we want to be here and trying to have that rolling contact with every exercise, be it the skipping or on the A skip. So that's the first point of teaching. But more than anything, I like athletes to get the rhythm and the coordinative element down before we start picking apart the technical aspects of
Jeff,
things.
Why should a high school distance runner do this long a warm up, and why should they specifically do this last part that they've seen their friends who are sprinters on the track team do?
Yeah, so I think the first part. So Christine and Maddie's roommate is known to watch them do the warm-up before going on a run with them, and the joke is that, well, that the first mile you're supposed to feel like garbage. And Christine and Maddie, sometimes they feel like garbage in the first mile, but after taking that 12 to 15 minutes to do the warm-up, they're online, they're ready to go. They don't have this period of kind of slogging around getting their bodies going, and they can go out and execute biomechanically in better positions. So that I would say would be one reason. It gets you dialed in, it gets you ready to go, ready to exercise. And then that last part, what they might be seeing their sprinter friends doing, a really good reason for that is, I guess I would say, is because as distance runners, we want to be fast too. We want our central nervous systems to be online. We want to execute movements efficiently. We want to execute movements in ways that are going to produce good force, that are going to help us move faster. And so if something like a warm-up kind of teaches us good postural positions, that's something that we want to do also as a distance runner. For something like the dribbles, that's a really good activity to start getting your central nervous system online, because when you can do those faster, the ground contacts happen pretty quick, and then you're ready to go.
Jeff, why is the dorsiflexion important on those last portions we saw?
Yeah, so this is potentially for some people a controversial topic. Dorsiflexion. So if your foot is in that position and you're running, the speed that you're going, your foot is going to self-select where it lands. And there's been a lot of debate, and there's literature out there that talks about foot strike and how you should land. And I'm a firm believer that the velocity that you're traveling is going to dictate where your foot lands. So whether that's further back, closer to your heel, closer to your midfoot, or closer to your forefoot. Being in a dorsiflex position allows your body to self-select based on the speed that you're traveling and the terrain that you're on, where it's going to be most effective to contact to impart force into the ground. The slower you go, the more time your body needs to impart force, so you're going to land further back. The faster you're going, Usain Bolt style as a sprinter, the farther forward you're going to land on your foot, because you literally don't have as much time to be on the ground because of how fast your center of mass is going. So dorsiflexion and learning dorsiflexion sets up the ability for the body to do the best job it can to determine where it needs to land.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Yeah.